Pode bater Pelé. Bola bem colocada no terreno. Juiz apitou, correu Pelé, atenção. Gol!
Santos x Juventus, 4-0 loss game. In August 1959, during the Campeonato Paulista soccer match, Santos faced against Club Atlético Juventus in São Paulo, Brazil. Pelé, who was already gaining notoriety from his first World Cup victory a year prior while he was only 17, was playing as Santos' forward player, scoring a total of 127 goals for Santos alone that year. But what made this match truly unique is what teammate, audience, and journalists witnessed that day as Pelé scored what he considered the greatest goal of his entire career. During the 87th minute, the game was already winning for Santos with a 3-0 difference. But another opportunity landed the ball for Pelé to score. Pelé would advance towards the net, launching the ball high into the air and passing over the head of 4 opposing teammates, including the goalkeeper, before scoring the final goal. During a 2004 documentary called Pelé Forever, a CGI recreation was made of the goal after the film team were unable to find any recordings of the game. It is suspected that due to the technical difficulties of recording a soccer match in its entirety, it was possible to never have been recorded. To add, clubs frowned upon live broadcasting during that time, as the stadium would be emptier with fewer fans. However, it is reported that it was visualized on television by first witness, and by 2009, it was said by a TV record that they had a video of the goal. However, an arson fire at the station happened at some time, erasing Pelé's goal in what was considered the largest collection of Brazilian soccer.
Canal 7, el punto de su atracción.
Bloody Videos. The Bloody Videos are a series of lost records that Director of National Intelligence Service of Peru, Vladimiro Montesino, accumulated in secrecy. These videos were recorded over the span of 3 years, from 1998 to 2000, and all surrounded themselves to keep the president of that time, Alberto Fujimori, in power. In these videos, it brought you into a room of National Intelligence Service, where Vladimiro handed stacks of cash to bribe government officials, politicians, and owners of TV channels to support Fujimori's political views. These were later used as a form of tracking payment and blackmail. There are speculations that the bribery were happening before the first ever recordings, potentially assisting Fujimori during his second term. However, there was enough evidence of corruption within those 3 years that landed Fujimori to 25 years in prison. Not all the bloody videos were recorded with secretive intentions, however. Some of the videos were from political events, television program recordings, and even birthday parties of Montesino's eldest daughter. Per month, it is estimated on news channels alone, Vladimiro would pay up to $3 million to Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5, and Channel 9. The only channel Vladimiro did not bribe was Channel 7 due to their low viewership and not being worth spending money on. But this eventually backfired as they were the first to air the videotapes highlighting Vladimiro's corruption. It was initially called the Cury Montesino tape, as the first political figure inside the videotape was Congress Alberto Cury and Vladimiro. After that videotape was released to the public, it is suspected that over 2,000 videos were confiscated. Fujimori, after hearing about the rest of the tapes, it was handed to him for investigation in quotes, and it's suspected that several tapes were erased to not paint Fujimori poorly. To add, Vladimiro stated that there were over 30,000 videos to either deceive and not take full blame for being the culprit. But from those 2,000 videos and suspected modifications, only 16,000 are stored in Peru's Congress, where only 350 were made publicly available, resulting into partial lost media and some potentially fully lost. El Oasis, or The Oasis, was a Colombian telenovela that was aired during 1994 to 1997 and was produced by the defunct television network Centro TV. The show was about a romance between two young teenagers, actor Pedro Rendon and a 17-year-old popular singer Shakira, who played Luisa Maria. Conflicted love existed between the two due to both of their surviving family were rivals before the Armero tragedy. For those who haven't heard of the Armero tragedy, it was a wipe of a town in 1985 Colombia that was caused by a volcanic eruption, leading to more than 20,000 deaths. The show was available for broadcast up until 2002, after Shakira herself obtained the rights and prevented any television stations from airing it ever again. Shakira stated, "My life is like a glass of water, transparent. Everyone can know what is in the background, because it is difficult for me to hide it. For something, I am a bad actress," asked the director of El Oasis. It is unsure if Shakira still possessed the entire El Oasis episodes, but currently only clips are available online, on YouTube and other websites.
Parte del modelo que inició Néstor Kirchner.
Daniel Scioli is an Argentinian politician and an ex-boat racer. He was vice president of Argentina from 2003 to 2007 and governor of Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires, from 2007 to 2015. Afterward, he tried becoming president, but ultimately and currently became the ambassador of Argentina in Brazil. Scioli is well known for losing his right arm in a boat accident in 1989 and became a symbol in his political campaign. The accident happened during a powerboat race on River Paraná in the Delta Argentino race, where a wave from an oil tanker overturned his boat, impacting his right arm to the point of required amputation. A helicopter from the Argentinian Air Force was following and recording the entire race when the accident happened. The only small video footage that is released was during a political campaign. The advertisement was called Acá está, or Here It Is, with the goal of becoming president. The video only shows the boat tipping over sideways in black and white, and later when the boat gets retrieved. No other footage was released from that event, but it is presumably not lost as Scioli seems to have the footage or permission to view and edit the non-gruesome scenes of that day.
Aquí está Augusto Alvarado García, amigo nuestro y amigo del presidente fallecido. Sus impresiones en este momento.
On June 3, 1959, dozens of teenagers were murdered by the Ecuador military in Guayaquil when they were protesting against the governor of the time, Camilo Ponce Enriquez. The governor recognized the death of 60 individuals, although some defend the idea of reaching more than 100. One registered the murder of one of the victims in camera, which was recovered in a document called La Muerte de Jaime Roldos, de Manolo Sarmiento y Lisandra Rivera. In 2009, in the documentary of the death of Jaime Roldos, filmographer Gabriel Tramontana confessed the existence of possessing footage of the crime. In that day, Tramontana went out to the street with his Bell Howell camera and filmed the lifeless bodies in the streets. After showing the footage to the US, it gave Tramontana the impression of being freely to show the president in Ecuador, Camilo Ponce Enriquez, which he responded, "Si lo pasa, aténganse a las consecuencias," which translates to pass it or face the consequences. The release of the footage would represent a danger for the stability and the so-called peace of the government. Therefore, with a short negotiation, Tramontana decided to hand the documentary to the president, where it was unsure if it was erased or kept stored. It is also unsure if Tramontana conserved a copy, making the footage of that day lost. A program in Uruguay called Desafío al Corazón, or Challenge at Heart, had the initial objective to help organization in the country by having contestants go through a series of challenge dares in return for donations. In March 17, 2006, after 2 years being aired on TV, Desafío al Corazón recorded a chilling episode that led to the death of 8 individuals and injuring 10 others. In the small town of Young, 300 kilometers from the capital, the program decided to choose a hospital to financially support by reaching an ultimate goal of $30,000 to sufficiently being able to donate an ambulance. The program had already selected the challenge, which was 60 contestants to pull over a 120,000-pound train along the rail tracks. The company state AFE of the railway provided the men that could operate the train without knowing what was the ultimate program goal. The conductor, however, noticed the dangers of the challenge as the day prior. It rained, providing light movement, and where it was planned to pull the train, it had an uneven floor that could result in a strong initial impulse once motion started. With the program arriving too young, an audience surrounded the area, and even the director of the hospital was present and sharing with a speaker. Around 2:30 p.m., the challenge was set to start, but due to everybody being enthusiastic, what was supposedly just 60 people to pull the train now became over 400. And without hesitation, the train's brake was removed. The cameraman immediately started recording, but only caught the train accelerating faster than the crowd could pull and react. The video recording of the episode never went on air, with only few images being shared online. To add, the program wasn't shut afterwards, as another episode was fully recorded, attempting to help another hospital located at Taguarembo. In this episode, a man would drive in a car while blindfolded and dodging people in the road. In the second challenge, he would then cut a watermelon that was placed on somebody's head. Ultimately, this episode wasn't aired either, and ultimately led to the cancellation of the show.
Más bien específico que es justamente el derecho a la protesta social.
Fulgencia Almirón was a photographer from Paraguay born in 1846 and died in 1925. There is not much information about her personal life, social status, education, or other activities. However, due to the Guerra de la Triple Alianza of 1864, or War of the Triple Alliance, Almirón was considered the first photographer from Paraguay. It is unsure how Almirón came across in the world of photography. Some speculate she was taught by active photographers at the time, such as French Juan Estienne or Chilean Felipe Ortiz, offering courses and equipment. Another possibility was she was self-taught from manuals, which wasn't unusual at the time. On the 6th of June of 1864, Almirón gained a patent to open a photography studio in Street Asunción, becoming the first school of photography. Here Almirón would make portraits with accessible pricing. She would also have a car that allowed her to find parts of the capital which had better illumination, which made the quality of her photos improve by a lot. Unfortunately, Almirón and her work would disappear in 1868 due to the evacuation in Asunción for being declared a military zone, forcing her to leave her photos behind and losing motivation to continue her work. All her photos are considered lost, with a very unfortunate preservation of the history of Paraguay photography. Only documents and a publication as proof of her work exists. Almirón is now honored at a park with her silhouette in the middle. Canciones de Siempre, or Song of Always, is a music album produced by the ex-president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez. In 1999, and 3 months after victory from elections, Hugo Chavez hosted a radio show called Allo Presidente, which is translated into Hello President. In this radio show, Chavez discussed the aspects of the government and existing problems in Venezuelan society. Aside from politics, audience could watch in person and call in to express their grievances with Chavez. After time went on, Chavez shifted from his political format and acted as a teacher, entertainer, and motivational speaker. Chavez would also broadcast a new location every week, highlighting the beautiful scenery of Venezuela where he could. While it was a form of propaganda to influence Chavez's ideas to the audience, for some it gave the ability to contact someone with power from Chavez's presence. Hugo Chavez even made his own catchphrase, shouting "expropiese," which is expropriate, dramatizing and pointing at rich people's building. By 2007, the first appearance of a musical album was shown in Hello Presidente show, called Canciones de Siempre. The album supposedly were compiled by original songs from Venezuela and Mexico performed by Hugo Chavez himself. Recording of Chavez singing was not uncommon, as he was very fond of doing so and performed live during speeches and political campaigns. The album was directed by Teresa Maniglia, also director of the radio show. Final mentions were about the album going to be on sale, however other media declared that it would be distributed for free among the Venezuelans. Yet that was the first and last time the album was shown. The number of songs were also unclear except for ideas of typical songs performed during Allo Presidente. It is unsure if the album was ever released to the public, or if Hugo Chavez had the only copy, or if it was done for propaganda self-marketing purposes, meaning that the album never really existed and was just a blank CD.
Ningún ciudadano se quede sin ayuda o sin ingresos.
Allo Policía. Between August and September 2016, a controversial group called Seguidores de la Grasa, or Followers of the Grease, which I do not have a clue on the meaning behind it, published that they were going to assault a kid who was playing Pokemon Go in the plaza in his city. To take advantage of the TV news being a couple blocks away, they wrote the Allo Policía to signal evidence of their success. The group took this in a comical way of victory, but later news reports took this as footage of the crime scene where everything happened. The news channel that reported it was Telepais from Unitel, where they discussed the assault at a kid who played in the late night in the middle of the city, and the responsible being blamed at the group. There is no registers of the news apart from the photo taken on the group message, and a screenshot of the Facebook message planning the robbery.
Yo con Bono me encantaría ir a compartir una tarde con Bono.
El Chacotero Sentimental was a popular Chile radio show conducted by Roberto Arteagoitia, who was more known as El Rompi. In between 2002 and 2005, the program El Club de Cangrejo, or the Crab Club, was made to talk generally about stories and narrations of sexual or personal events. One of the most popular stories from the program was El Dragón, or El Beso de Dragón, which translates to the dragon or the kiss of the dragon. The story comes from a phone call of a woman called Scarlett, where she details about a sexual encounter that she offered to her husband's father. Scarlett continued the story, revealing that she was pregnant and insinuating that it was from the father-in-law. Unfortunately, her husband was listening to the entire conversation while the radio show was happening, and that would be the last time we hear from Scarlett for a while. Years later, El Rumpi would confess in an interview for another program that he received another phone call from Scarlett, explaining the aftermath after the husband heard the news. Here she requested the audio recordings of the call to report after what happened to the police, though it was told to Rumpi that the man physically abused the father-in-law and the woman, leading to the woman losing her pregnancy and the father-in-law losing consciousness. Ultimately, the man was jailed for attempted murder. The first audio call from Scarlett is available, however the second call that was done in the program never appeared online.
Fail to follow my advice, you'll be sorry. You'll be sorry.
November 18, 1978, deep in the Guyanese jungle, over 900 members of the People's Temple lost their lives in one of the most shocking mass tragedies of the 20th century, known as the Jonestown Massacre. It was led by cult leader Jim Jones, who orchestrated a mass murder-suicide. California Congressman Leo Ryan, days prior, was suspicious of existing trouble in Jonestown, a settlement out in the jungle of Guyana, by the charismatic Jim Jones and his followers called the People Temple, but meant to be more of a religious center. Allegations made it seem like a slave camp. Beatings, forced labor, imprisonments, use of drugs, and even deaths were some of the accusations made on Jonestown. By fall 1978, Ryan and his congressional delegation flew to Guyana and days later arrived to Jonestown with government officials and reporters. By conducting interviews with the followers, some families and individuals asked to return with the congressman, while others tried to escape by their own. Jones, hearing of these interviews, was very upset. After collecting enough evidence, Ryan and everybody else decided to leave. Jeff Ryan suggested to wait for a second plane to arrive, to not leave anybody behind in fear that the Jones would apprehend the rest. This ultimately gave the cult enough time to catch up with the entire group. As the second plane arrived, where they started shooting everybody and at the planes, killing the congressman and others, while wounding the rest. Jones, knowingly he will get questioning now get caught for his actions, decided to end Jonestown with a plan of calling everybody in the cult and ordering them to drink a fruit drink laced with cyanide, killing over 900 cultists and including more than 200 children, with ultimately Jones dying with a gunshot to his head. Currently, there are only known audio of the mass deaths of the cult, and short clips when Jones cultists reached and started shooting to the reporters escaping Jonestown. Surname Animation Network. This was rough to look for. Lost media based on countries are usually easy to identify due to mentions of first witnesses online. However, in a country with a low population, like Suriname, there would be a smaller community of lost media enthusiasts or collectionists. This overall creates a larger library of lost content, and almost no accounts of said media existing. The only lost media that I could find was the lost Suriname dubbed version of Backjardigans. Therefore, I decided to do my own investigation and discover Suriname Animation Network, or SAN. SAN is a platform that started in 2015 that offers ideas and collaboration in the animation sector of Suriname. In 2016, SAN was invited to the Anime Carib Festival to highlight animations in development, attracting top animators from DreamWorks, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon. Here, animation ideas that were brought were the names of Captain Mimas, Automotive Engineering, and the case we'll be highlighting is Old Hig. Old Hig is a collaboration of Guyana Animation Network, where they suspected to present a demo on a mythical creature known as the Old Hig. The creature appears in a ball of fire at night and lives on the edge of the village during the day. According to village folklore, the Old Hig is reborn every 2 centuries during the birth of a newborn during the full moon. Anita, the main character, is told by the village elder that she was the newborn to be the next host of the Old Hig. The story unfolds as John, the boyfriend or husband, desperately seeks a way to save her from her dreadful fate. And that's all we know of the demo. There are currently trailers of the suspected animation, however none of them match the description of the demo, making what was presented at the festival as lost media.
On the northern coast of South America lies the colony of French Guiana.
Similar to Suriname, there are almost no mention of lost media for French Guiana. However, since French Guiana is considered the empowerment of France, according to Google, to make life easier, I decided to choose a lost French media. The Guerre des Gosses, also known as The War of the Kids, is a 1938 French film, and is the first adaptation of the 1912 novel War of the Buttons, written by Louis Pergaud. The movie was first broadcast in October 27th and lasted 87 minutes, with 2 famous characters during that time, such as Charles Aznavour and Marcel Morlogy. The story goes with 2 small villages in the south of France that have been torn against each other by a feud waged longer than what they remember. As a result, all the children in both villages fight against each other in a merciless battle. Then it talks about a teacher in one village and the mayor of the other, driven by opposite views, referring to what I imagine as romantic feelings. Initially considered lost from the idea of only existing a single untraceable copy, in 2012, someone was able to get an air at on the 17th Vents Cinematographic meetings. Actors of the movies were invited, including TV reporters that extracted some screenshots. Later on, another institute in 2017 aired the movie in the auditorium, but after those 2 occurrences, it was never aired again and considered not accessible.